Whether you're a seasoned vet of the payments industry or a brand new rookie who just heard the term dual pricing for the first time, you're in the right place. This is the only podcast that shares the strategies and stories behind selling merchant services, all from the perspective of those on the front lines. Welcome to Agent First. Welcome back to another episode of Agent First. I'm Jon. He's Justin.
Hello.
And I thought we would talk today. So I'm going to be a little bit nebulous because I want to maintain the innocence of everyone involved.
All right, let's do that.
We were at a conference recently, and you were part of a panel with some other ISO founder CEOs, and there were a lot of really good questions. And really different answers.
Yep.
And a lot of the questions were kind of around, the why folks had landed on 1099 versus W-2.
Right.
Or at least one of the ISOs is now they sell a single product and that's it. Single product to a single vertical.
Right.
And again, I want to be careful that I'm not giving it
fine.
away.
That's cool.
And so I just, I came out of that thinking, you've landed in a different place.
Completely,
right?
Obviously.
But you've worked in both.
Yeah,
maybe not a single product, but certainly
right.
close,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so, from kind of an agent's perspective, but also maybe a little bit from an ISO perspective.
Right.
I'd love to just kind of talk through that.
Sure, absolutely.
Is that enough to just kind of wind you up and let you go?
Yeah, let me go for the next 30 minutes. Let's go. So, I think I'll start with this is that I don't think there's any right or wrong way.
Sure.
In just an overall general sense of good and bad, right, wrong. It is really a fit for the individual person. What is the right fit for them, right? I mean, there are plenty of people who need things differently than others, and so I always want to start this whole conversation with that concept of obviously a lot of this is going to be me speaking my opinion, of course, that's what this is about, but let me put that caveat out there that I don't think that my opinion is good and others are bad. It's just that this is what's super important to me, and these are non-negotiables to me, and that I would do it no other way. And so the concept being is that W-2 versus 1099, the general thinking is that there is a difference in control. That was the word that came up a lot, was this word of control. Right. And it sends shivers up my spine to hear that, because I just think completely opposite of that. Obviously, when you and this is not, there's no one way to do this, but generally speaking, when you're W-2, you're paid a wage in exchange for a certain output, right? And so that output, if you're a factory worker, is a widget. If you sweep streets, it's clean streets. If you sell merchant services, it's close deals. And so there are going to be a certain level of expectations, and I think that benefits salespeople that are maybe middle of the road to low producers, or people who say, I just want to, I'm okay making that kind of money.
Sure.
I'm okay with the control in exchange. I'm okay with the reports, the required number of hours, the required number of sales, the required meetings, the required trainings. Quotas. Yeah, sorry, I missed that one. Quotas. I'm okay with all that because I know that I'm probably getting paid more than I would if I went out and did it on my own, possibly.
Okay.
So I think there's some people that I talk to people all the time that say like, hey, I'm okay with that because I'm at this point in my life where I'm just kind of getting by,
Yeah.
And so there's that over there. But if you're somebody who is looking to achieve more, you want to be better than the average bear, then I can't see how in any way that benefits you, because in order for me, if I am a person who's employing W-2 salespeople, I have to make the pay structure to where it takes care of the lowest common denominator, and I have to hope that the highest producer is okay with that, but it's not built for them. It's built to cover my losses on the lowest guy. So now, if I'm a producer who's trying to be better than average or great, That's not going to be the place for me if we're talking strictly earnings and lifestyle potential. Now, as a from an agent standpoint, I can't imagine wanting that. I can't imagine, choosing the lifestyle of sales. And we've heard this from our guests, and we hear it from people all the time, that most people, choose this lifestyle because they love the freedom and the flexibility that goes with it. I want to be able to, if I want to take off this afternoon and go to Mexico for the next 3 days, I can. If I want to, my kid's got a, science fair tomorrow, I can be there. You have that flexibility in sales to do that. But when you're a W-2 salesperson, you're giving that up in exchange for some of these other things. Now, sure, you may feel like, oh, no one's telling me where I have to be at 2:00, but they are telling you what you have to do that month and that week and that day. So there's that part of it. And then on the other side of it, when I am, from an actual ISO owner standpoint, to me it just feels icky. I don't know. That's a wrong way I don't know what the word to use other than that, because to me, I don't want to have a bunch of people that are saying like, okay, I have to do these things, I have to do these activities because Justin and his leadership team are telling me I have to, and there just seems like such an imbalance there. And so for me, what was always important I come from an entrepreneurial family. And as we went down this pathway of everything I've done in my career and to this point now, last 4 years or so of Pay Compass, is really saying I want to empower others to have that same feeling of freedom. I want others to say I can achieve whatever I want to achieve. If I'm okay at this level, then hey, more power to you. I love you, man. If I want to achieve huge volume and I want to build a team and I want to break away and go start my own ISO, oh my God, I would love that. That's awesome. That'd be a proud dad moment for me, And so, I love that concept of the freedom and the flexibility it gives. And on the other side of it, allows me to say, you know what, we can really offer some awesome compensation programs, some awesome benefits to our salespeople, to all of our agents out there, because I don't have to worry about, okay, I've got to overpay the lowest common denominator. If everybody's making a percentage, you're making a percentage. If you sell, you sell. If you don't, you don't. You're paid, based upon the production you bring. So to me, it's, and I think that's real. If I really wrap it all up into one concept, it's that concept of, and barbaric sounding, but you eat what you kill when it comes to sales. That's at the end of the day, that's what we're all about. And I'll always look at things through the lens of a salesperson, and it's that concept of why are you being paid for something that you didn't produce? And when you're doing a salary, in essence, that's what's happening. It's not tied directly to your sales, most of the time. It's tied instead, to this. So it comes down to, the concept of let's be rewarded well for what we directly produce, and let's trust people to be adults and do what they want to do to benefit them.
Yeah, I mean, so if I went on the other side, I could make a convincing argument why, like a limited product set, right? It's easier to train, it's easier to support, it's easier to know right away whether it's a fit or not.
Right.
Would help efficiency, would help maybe even profitability for the sales organization.
Right.
For me, it breaks down when it starts. But is that really better for the agent, right? If they can only sell one product to one kind of customer,
right?
Well, unless there's an infinite number of those out there, we're already placing some limiting facters on them.
Exactly. Yeah. And that comes down to one of the things we've talked about in previous podcasts, and one of the things I really drove me to starting Pay Compass was that concept of I didn't want our agents to ever have to say no and walk away from an opportunity. And when you start really getting really focused with your product set or really focused with your offering, you have to do that if you're going to be honest. Anyways, if unless you're going to try to really fit a square peg in a round hole, it's not going to work. And I did too much of that in the past. We just won't do it again. and it's taken even a further step, and I'm sure this is where we're going to go, so I'm just going to go there. Is the actual just the concept of control is just it is such it reminds me of something you'd hear from a 90s employee training manual or employer training manual or something of that we need to control this. We need to tell. They're not smart enough to figure it out for themselves, so we need to tell them what they need to do. Whereas I believe in the complete opposite, which is let's create an abundance of tools and systems and structure, systems and tools and options out there, and allow you to choose the one that's right for you. I'm sitting here talking about Pay Compass in my journey, but there's a lot of other companies out there doing a lot of very similar things, great things. There's many great ISOs out there that are doing just that also, where it's, this guy over here is really, really good at, selling terminals, and he knocks on doors, and if there's a point of sale system there and it looks complex, he just walks out the door because that's not his shtick. And then you got the guy clear on the opposite side that is doing the most complex ISV integrations, and he wouldn't think for a second to go cold calling over here. And this guy who's cold calling over here wouldn't think for a second he doesn't even know how to barely turn on a smartphone. And choose the tool that's right for you. Don't tell them what it is, because you're possibly restricting them from greatness.
Right. And again, I can make that argument from a profitability standpoint, from an efficiency standpoint, but it really breaks down when I try and think about it from an agent standpoint.
All of this breaks down, let's be clear. When we start talking about profitability, my entire business model breaks down. Right, really, if we're talking, if our whole focus is what's the most profitable thing for Justin and Justin's family and Pay Compass, this entire thing breaks down.
Recording a podcast doesn't fall in that too.
Exactly. Like there is so many different ways, and there's many other ISOs out there that are shining examples of, let me hire a bunch of W-2 salespeople, let me pay them nothing, let me not give them lifetime residuals, and when they leave, we shut them off and we get to keep all that money, or we fire them, we get to keep all that money. There's a ton of them out there that are making ridiculous amounts of profits, and that's great. That's the business model you want. Hats off to you. I just, I couldn't look at myself in the mirror if I was doing that.
Well, and I know you said it in a previous episode, the winning alone isn't winning. Right?
Absolutely.
The whole idea is to try and get everybody, or as many people as possible, across the finish line.
That's right.
So obviously you spent years as a W-2 salesperson in this industry. Was part of the perspective when maybe considering this kind of going independent, whatever that looked like, right? You knew you could sell. You knew you could build relationships.
Right.
It was everything else that came with it that was daunting, right? The technical support and installation and file builds and all the things that are, all the other parts. Is that, because the other part is, I think as a W-2 person, your residual split is much smaller than it is when you're more independent, right?
Right.
But I have to think that that's kind of the math that you're constantly doing in your head, right?
I would agree, absolutely. I mean, I think back to, when I was at Heartland, to me, that entire side of it just felt like, mystery. I didn't know how any of that worked, and honestly, I didn't care. And to me, that was, I learned so much, and there was so much opportunity, for me during that time. That on the sales side, I was just so focused on, I didn't know what the rest looked like. When I got the opportunity to be a part of the beginning days of Beyond, I was one of the first 20 employees. I really got to see the behind the scenes and realize, like, oh, okay, I see, this talks to this and that company does this. And I started realizing, like, okay, these giant companies, the Heartlands of the world, Beyonds of the world, and many others out there. I'm singling them out because I worked there, but there's many others that are the same way, are just really, giant ISOs that are connected to these people. And so as I started looking at, after I left Beyond and started saying, okay, let's, start playing out Pay Compass, I realized, like, okay, this isn't, change out the engine on a space shuttle here. We just got to connect up with the right people to do that part of it. And I think that's a lot of people's hesitation, is the how do I do it? Who do I connect with? How do I talk? Now, I had the benefit of having a lot of those relationships and a lot of those connections already because of my long time in the industry. So I was able to make calls and get that all put together. But today's opportunity is a lot different than it was, 15 years ago when I got in the industry of ISO related services that just, they weren't there then. And so, but exactly right. I mean, the sales part of it, that's easy. It's all the rest of the parts that have evolved over time and become something that you can jump into and make an immediate impact without having to be, the largest company out there.
Is it, as if we're talking to an agent, right? And imagining that someone's listening right now, and maybe they're weighing that kind of in between.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that that you would say to them, or that? And again, we're biased a little bit because we've fallen on the side of 1099. We started this by talking about not understanding how people would go W-2. So I'm acknowledging that bias kind of in the question. But what are some of the parts that you would kind of think through, or if you were going to sit down over coffee with somebody and they were saying, I really don't know which one.
Yeah.
How would you kind of walk them down that decision?
Yeah, that's a great perspective. I think I would start with product offering choices. You've got to start there. I mean, if we're really looking at ourselves as there to serve our merchants and to serve our community, we need to make sure we have all the options available. I mean, we're, if you're okay with being the little, corner mart that only has, limited things, you're going to get limited customers. It's why, supermarkets have all the different choices. I think that we have to have lots of different choices and lots of different product offerings available because every merchant has, different needs, different unique things that they're struggling with. And so I would start with there. Now, there are some W-2 companies that do have a wide breadth of products, but that's very few. Usually they're very limited. They're limited on the platforms they can work with. They're limited on the types of hardware they'll support. There's a lot of limitations there. So I would definitely start there of let's have an honest conversation, or at least you think internally about how many times have you walked away from a deal because you didn't have the offering, high-risk deal, some sort of gateway, even a terminal that, they really want this functionality. You're like, man, we just don't have that. Or what I did many times, and not proud of, but we've all done it, and you're a liar if you say you haven't, is you don't have that particular product that you know is the right product, so you try to sell them something that's close, right? And so I think this will get you about 95% of the way there, and sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Many times it does not. And so I would start with definitely on that side of it. What does that look like? And then I'd start talking about, what does your future look like? What are you trying to achieve? If you just want to make money every year, put away some money in a 401k, because a lot of them have, 401ks at, W-2 places. You want to put away money in a 401k, have some health insurance options, and retire when you're 60, and that's it. And, live off of Social Security and your 401k, cool. But if you're really trying to build something and build a different lifestyle for your family, and you're trying to build, maybe even generational wealth for your family, you're not likely going to do that in a W-2 position. You need to step out and do this in a different way where you can, because of the way residuals grow so much faster on the 1099 side, and the multiples you can sell your portfolio for, which is a whole nother discussion, but how much you can sell that for is just astronomical. And when you talk about what that would be, so I would definitely start there, and then talking about things like what protection is there for your family? What happens if let's say you're at one of those 1099, or you're at one of those W-2 roles that do pay you great residuals. What happens if something happens to you? Are you protected? And I would say that even the people that are on the 1099 side, like, make sure that your family's protected. Make sure that is written somewhere that can't be changed, that you're truly protected. Because that's the one that just scares me the most for people out there is, things happen all the time.
Sure.
And you're building all this and doing all this work to take care of your family, make sure that they're taken care of even if you're not around. So, there's so much we could. I mean, I think listen, there are people that the W-2 side works for you. You feel comfort in it. It's there. But I think for the vast majority of salespeople, the benefits far outweigh it, and the scariness of jumping into that unknown world. That leap is more like jumping across a puddle, not jumping across a lake here.
Yeah, I've heard you say to folks too, even if that kind of bigger view is your long-term view, sometimes the W-2 places are the best place to get started.
Absolutely.
Right? Just because of training resource, all the things that are being paid for by not giving you higher splits, right, are some of the things that do help you get started, whether it's training or things like that.
Yeah, absolutely, exactly. And we use the joke all the time of like, that's a great place to go get your bachelor's degree. Now you're ready to go get your master's, right? And absolutely. I mean, I get calls and messages from people all the time, or people that I meet through personal introductions, stuff like that are like, man, I'd love to do how do I get started in your industry? And I just tell them, like, we're probably not the right fit for you.
Right.
The 1099 ISO route is likely not the right fit for you. If you're really wanting to get started, there are some really cool companies out there that you can cut your teeth on. And don't stay as long as I stayed. You don't need to stay, a long time, but learn the industry. Use those resources there. There's a lot of them out there that you can do that with. There are some 1099 positions out there that do a great job of that, training brand new people, but you're giving up a lot for that, and then you're signing some contracts that sometimes aren't beneficial to you. So I don't think it's a bad thing. I mean, I don't regret a single ounce of my time at Heartland or beyond whatsoever, because I learned so much, and I have so many friends that will say the same thing, is that there was amazing time for us to learn so much and to learn the industry that, it got you to a certain point. Now you really want to go to the next point, either financially or just in understanding the industry. You've got to take that next step.
Yeah, I think that's great. Well, thank you for talking me off the ledge from some of what we heard, and I think it's a great perspective. Again, a lot of what I've heard you say is there's not necessarily there are right and wrong, but when it comes to some of these ways to do things, it's not necessarily right or wrong. It's just kind of what's the right fit for you as a business or you as an agent, as we navigate it.
Yeah, I don't think there's ever a time where it's just it's always this or always that. I don't believe in absolutes in that regard, but I think for somebody who truly is trying to grow themselves and become the best in their industry and truly provide something life-changing for themselves and their family and create something ongoing, I just don't know how you do it in a W-2 role in a sizable way.
Couldn't have said it any better. Thanks, Justin. I appreciate it.
Anytime.